All right, well, I think we'll dive in. So, welcome everybody. My name is Ellie Burns. I am the Senior Director of Nonprofit Relations at the Community Foundation, and we're really excited to welcome you today to Grant Writing with Ethics, a community-based training on prospecting the right funder with Cindy McKenzie. So, we're so excited to have you, Cindy. Cindy is actually joining us from Maine, which she just shared with me that she still has snow outside. So, I guess we will not complain about our Iowa weather. Cindy works in Maine as a consultant, and it is her goal to work with agencies both large and small to empower individuals and collaboratives in achieving established goals with measured outcomes. She's a successful grant professional who will assist leaders in supporting their agency to thrive and be profitable. She guides groups to develop strategic plans with specific and actionable action steps and mobilizes communities to utilize evidence-based practices and programs that create measurable outcomes. She prides herself on creating a work environment that's based on trust, respect, and ethical standards, which help agencies grow. She's trained in assessment, planning, capacity building, implementation, evaluation, and cultural competence as a prevention and grant professional. In 2013, she became the first person in New Hampshire to become a grant professional certified. She also became a member of the Grant Professionals Association, where her membership allows her the ability to network with other professionals and continually stay up to date on the latest research and federal regulations. She was just sharing some of that insight with me from a podcast she was listening to, so I'm excited to hear more from her. She provides trainings as a GPA approved trainer on topics like grant writing and managing, ethics, case statements, uniform guidance, strategic planning, and others. And I'm pretty sure we'll share her website and her contact information when we're finished here. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements before I pass it over to Cindy. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat box and we'll try to get them answered throughout. We'll also maybe have some time at the end for questions. Again, we're just so excited to have you here. And last thing, we will send out the PowerPoint, and you should have gotten some handouts in an email previously, but we'll resend those too, as well as a recording of today's session. So, okay, I'll stop talking and I'll let Cindy take it away. Thanks for being here, Cindy.
Thank you, Ellie. You said so much about me. I think I won't need to do any kind of introduction. So I am a member of GPA, like Ellie said, and one of the things that I always try to cover with any training I do, and it doesn't matter what the audience is, the Grant Professional Association ethics and the Grant Professional Certification Institute has core principles, which I think Ellie sent you, like she said, those handouts yesterday with everything listed on it. But today we're going to talk about researching and identifying resources that really are going to meet your needs, increasing your knowledge on recognized standards of ethical practices, creating and keeping those positive relationships, nurturing them, sustaining them over time, and really, cultivating what we need to with those relationships. I have been a firm believer in my 20 plus years of doing this that relationships matter throughout the entire process. And even though, and we were talking a little bit about AI before we came on live, but everyone was worried with AI that we were going to be replaced, our jobs were going to go away. And I think nothing can be further from the truth because so much of our work is relational. And I still believe that today, even though we submit grants online and sometimes we're doing federal grants and people are in DC, it's still all about relationships. So today we're really going to talk about being strategic about an annual grant calendar. And it's going to be based on researching funders who really are aligned with our own mission and our values, what our goals are. And hopefully you all have strategic plans so you know what your goals are and you're not just chasing money. And you see an opportunity and you say, oh yeah, let's go for that because that sounds good. And you're really thinking about those long-term goals. We're going to talk about how to really maintain those relationships with the funders. I'm finding more and more, particularly at the foundation level, they are really interested in everything about your organization. You know, if you're having problems on your board, they want to help you develop that board. If you're having problems and you don't have a strategic plan, foundations are willing to invest in creating strategic plans. They have pots of money that are for that. Um, it just they're really invested in seeing you be successful. So it's really good to make sure that your funder relationships are strong. And then we are going to talk about the ethical standards for grant professionals. And like I said, this matters throughout, you know, all our relationships and how we handle ourselves daily in our work. So when I talk about grants, I'm talking about, and this is just so you understand, I'm talking about from pre-award when we decide, you know, what we need to apply for, all the way to closing out the grant. And I would say even beyond closing out the grant, because funders talk to funders. Just like we talk to grant professionals, there are funders meetings. They do collaborate. They do talk to one another. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like that because, you know, there's a million different places and systems we have to apply to, and there's not one single application, and it seems very complicated. It's interesting because I just am coming off of going to and presenting at an AFP conference. And almost every workshop I sat, and even when I presented, it seems like fundraising professionals are so concerned that grants are so complicated and that we have way too many portals, and reporting and managing it are just way too complicated, and it's just so much easier to go after individual donors. And I kept cringing in the audience, and finally I just raised my hand and I'm like, I think you guys are really missing so many dollars and so much money in corporate and individual family donors and community foundations, and it's really not that hard. And we just really, you know, you have to really go to grant professionals and those of us who've been in the field and we really know how to do this. And there's just, I find grants just, I love my job, so you're probably going to feel that as I do this presentation, but I know that it's complicated. One of my least favorite grants in the world are congressionally spending funds and congressionally direction. God, I can't think of the right word, how to say it now. Congressionally directed spending funds. To me, they're just the hardest to manage, and it takes 2 years to get the money out and everything. And I'm actually dealing with several of those right now. And I do sometimes feel like, oh my God, you know, let's just get the money out the door and make the difference in the community. And it is frustrating. I will admit that. Um, but where else are you going to get $675,000 for an HVAC unit? I mean, I don't think I'm going to have lunch with someone and foster that relationship and to have them just write me a check. It may happen. I don't know, but I mean, grants are so worth it, and there are really ways that we can understand and get used to the different avenues and how to do it all. So this is one of the handouts that you should have received, and you will again. It's a sample grant calendar, and this is what I do with all of my clients. Now, I used to be employed at a county, and I managed all their grants, and I also was employed at different prevention coalitions. So I've been in small nonprofits, and I've been in large nonprofits, and now I'm working on my own and as a consultant. But with everybody, we've had some sort of a calendar that looks similar to this. So on the first tab is your calendar. We've gone and we found resources and due dates, and then we've filled this in accordingly by the funding source and the date that it's due. What type is it? Is it a foundation or a federal grant? What program are we hoping to fund through it? When is it due? When did we send it? who's ultimately responsible in our office, what's our request amount, when was it, how much did we get when we were awarded it? Did we get a previous award, just so we know, basically how much to ask for again? Um, when is the report due? Did we send it? When's the final report due? So all of these things are things that we should be keeping track of. The second tab is a task tab, which is basically, and you can open this up for those of you that received it yesterday, but it's, who's responsible for sending the reporting and all of that, which is really important, right? Because not only do they give you the money and they trust that you're gonna spend it appropriately, but they also want to know about it. I mean, funders rely on seeing those reports quarterly or annually or however often, and they want you to be honest. I mean, if something didn't happen, they want to know that. They are usually very understanding. Um, I've only had one time in my 20-year career that we had a project that totally went off the rail. It just never got off the ground, no matter how much technical assistance I gave. This one coalition, it was a pass through to a coalition in the community through the county I worked at, and they just couldn't get their act together, couldn't follow the steps. There was a real lack of readiness. So after several attempts to help them, I ended up calling the funder and saying, this just really isn't working out. So at that 3-month mark, and after meeting with them several times, I called the funder in, and the funder met with them and gave them certain tasks to try to complete by the 6 months. And when they didn't meet those goals, we did have to take the money back, and the funder, took the money back, and the grant was over. And, that's a really scary thing to do, to be that honest and vulnerable with a funder, especially as someone who takes my job very seriously and felt very responsible for that and not helping it get done. But in the end, that funder had so much respect for me when we continued to get funds from them, because they knew that we were really holding people's feet to the fire, and we were being good stewards of the money and making sure that what was supposed to happen in the community was really happening. So as a fiscal agent, we were being responsible, and what their goals was to really see that coalition be successful, and it just wasn't happening. And even though we were trying to give them technical assistance, and so didn't they, it just wasn't happening. So even though it didn't work out, the funder didn't look negatively on us. In fact, they looked positively on us. And I think, Ellie, you could probably speak to this as someone who's at the foundation, but would you not share that sentiment that would be a positive thing? Yeah, you're unmuted. I mean, you're muted, but
Yes, I would absolutely. I mean, yeah.
you'd really rather people be honest than hide.
100%. And we try to be honest too, right? Like I always tell someone when they come in to talk to me about a grant, I'm going to be as transparent as I can, because I want, I don't want you to apply for something that maybe isn't a fit for those priorities. So it's just that respect, and all goes back to the relationship. Cindy, you're so right.
Right. Thank you. So don't be afraid to be honest, I guess is my point. But it is important to be on time. And if you're going to be late, make sure you notify them and tell them why. So the thing really to do when you're looking for a funder is to really think about aligning your mission and aligning your strategic plan. So you want to research, whatever possible. I don't care if you use GrantStation or if you use Instrumental or what you use in order to find funders, but make sure that you're putting in the right keywords. Look at the funder website. Think about, the data that you have with United Way, but think about, United Way as a funder. Hospitals give out money. They grant funds. They're required to do so because they have to meet the needs within their communities. You want to look at funders 990s to see who they give to. They usually list them on their 990s. You want to look at particular organizations' board of directors to see if anyone on your board of director knows anyone on their board of director so that you can connect with them. You want to look on their website to see, you know, who were their prior grantees at these and where do you align? Do you have similar programs as some of the other grantees that they funded? And the reason I like to look at 990s is because it tells me a lot about their giving range as well. So if they gave out, say, 10 grants of $30,000 each, you know that that's the typical grant for them. But if they were all over the place from $500 to 100,000 or 500,000, then you know that they have a pretty wide range. So make sure that you're looking in a variety of places, but you make sure that number one, you align with what they're trying to do. So foundation and corporate funding, there's a lot of places to look for them. There's independent, corporate, community. There's all sorts of charity. The Foundation Center directory is at the library if none of you can afford to subscribe. Grantscape, which is from Thompson, is one place. GuideStar. There's a national registry. I'm sure you know of some of these places. The Grantsmanship Center happens to be my favorite place to go to look. Grant Station. If you are a member of GPA, this is something that's free. So that's somewhere where I go quite a bit. eCivis is another great resource. The Foundation Search, which has a map-based tool. Grant Gopher is something that I get in my email once a week. They have the most unique grant opportunities. They're kind of funny. They're when I was at the county, we supported the emergency preparedness office, and they came to me one time and their dental offices needed toothbrushes, and they were given out in their free clinic. Grant Gopher had a grant for that. They just have some unusual ones that you wouldn't see on a normal list. Instrumental has been around for probably, I'm guessing 5 or 6 years, but they've really come a long way and they've advanced the way that their search engine runs. That's also a good one. And I'm going to walk us through this one here. And I'll tell you why I like this one so much. Because it goes by state. So when you go on this first landing page, this is what you see. So it's the United States, but then you go and you click on one of the states and it brings you right to the landing page. And I'm going to do this now. I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to go on my my own web here. So when I clicked that link, it immediately brought me to your Iowa page, okay? So I'm assuming everyone, I can see Ellie nodding. So these are local funding sources in Iowa. So right away, it brings me to where there might be some grant training, where there's some tool, but free resources for the state of Iowa. So this is top giving foundations in Iowa. So this is why I love this site, because here's a list, quite a few, as you can see, foundation names and their annual giving. Now, when they're in blue like this, you can go right to them and you can go to their website. Pretty cool, huh? And then you can find out anything you want. I mean, you can go and look at about us, you know, obviously we can learn more here by clicking there, but it's something you don't have to go and look up yourself. Try to minimize my. Sorry. Sorry, I couldn't seem to go back for some reason. Anyway, so let's just pick one. I'm just gonna pick one. I have no idea who's got the most interest in what, but you can go through any on that list. Click to go to their website. See what counties, like this one has the counties they're listed in or where they give. You can see here's their application, their various applications. I mean, some have um, an about, this one has the about page. Okay, right here, board and staff. So right away, you'd be able to see who's on the board. And one of the things I do with my organizations is what, once I find a funder that actually has the same interest in my organization, I'll print them a list of board members and say, do you know anybody on here? Because that personal touch, again, from board member to board member might make all the difference in the world. Let's see on their financials if they have their 990, and they do. So right away, we could go right here to their Form 990. It's a little old. They had their 2020 on there, but still, we can take a look. I don't know how many of you are familiar with a 990, but again, they're going to list their directors on their 990. And they're also going to list, hopefully they did here. There's a lot of pages to the 990, so you just have to keep going down. You'll see an area where they actually list who they gave money to and what for. So description of grants. So they gave to a community school, 7665. So, $7,000 was that grant. The 4th of July here, 7,000. So you can look and see, this was for community projects. This was for an endowment. This was for community projects. This was to a high school. This was to a city for improvements. Again, 7,000. So their grants are for mostly improvements and buildings. So this one is good because you can see it's for capital, which not many funders fund capital. And you can see the ranges are 7,000, 12,000, 14,000. So it's somewhere under 20. But again, that's good information to know, right? So you can look at their 990s. So to me, that's a lot of information you can get just from one page. I'm going to hop back on. So if we go here to, oh, I'm sorry. This is the actual homepage of the Grantsmanship Center. Because they have a lot of trainings too. Somehow I'm in their training center. All right, so let's go to their community foundation tab. Again, this one even breaks you down by geographic focus area. So that's even better because you know your service area, right? And so you can kind of you won't have to go to every single site, and you can break that down by your geographic focus. Again, go right to their website. Say you cover Jasper County, and then you can go right to their website from there. Their total giving is 95,000. So again, you can do that on any one of them. And then for their corporate giving, it's a little less friendly, but at least it does give you the city headquarters, but it does not go right to their site. Their websites are not linked right here. But typically, for corporates, they give right where they are, right around their corporate offices. So you can usually, go right to their company name, and Google it. And then they have the homepage for the state, which is also very helpful because then you can get on any list, for state funds. But that's why I like it, because there's just a lot of good information there from your own state. So we'll go back to our PowerPoint here in a sec. So again, we know that it's about relationships too. So let's see, how many of you, if you can just use your hand, in the chat box, feel like your board is involved with creating these relationships with funders? Do you get them involved? I see one, Jenny, good for you. Not a lot of people. Okay, well, let's try to change that. Because it is really important, that we get everybody in the organization involved on one level or another in trying to raise money for your organization, because it's everybody's job, really. So we have to think about our non-traditional networks. So what contacts have you made or should you make? Are there upcoming meetings? I mean, we all attend meetings, right? We have meeting overload. And actually, we've been doing a lot better with having virtual meetings, and we've been getting back to in-person meetings. But how do we make these contacts within our community where we can collaborate? And I don't just mean network, I mean truly collaborate. So, we all have some skin in the game to meet needs within the community. So we're not just sharing information, but we might be giving something up. And actually that involves a lot of risk, right? But what are the advantages to doing that? And I would say that they're pretty big. So let's try to think outside the box. So if we work with another organization, might we get more money? Might we be able to expand our services? Might we be able to, tap on someone else's expertise, and bring something new to our own organization? So make sure that you're educating as well as, assisting others in accomplishing the same goals. So my idea is, um, and then this is kind of funny, but I had attended an advocacy training in New Hampshire once, where we actually had one of these old phones, which I had during my childhood, and we brought it to a board meeting. And we said to the board members, now we know you're not comfortable with doing these calls to funders, and we know you're not comfortable calling your friends and asking for money for our organization. But on behalf of our organization, these are the things that we really need to raise money for this year. And we really need you to help us. So can we help you feel more comfortable doing that? So we take this phone just to kind of get everybody laughing and joking and feeling more comfortable about it. And we walk them through a script. And we try to assist them because it is our job as grant professionals to really help them be more comfortable and be educated about what we need them to say. So in order to do that, what I like to create for my clients is what I call case statements. So I don't care if you call them gratitude reports. I don't care if you call them philanthropic cases of support. You can call them anything you want. But basically, they're about the need that your organization has, the solution you're going to propose, and the call to action in your community. So why do we need this money, and how is our donor going to help us? And how is it going to benefit? This is a short, concise, data-driven document that is really going to help sell our cause. So what's going to have on it? It's going to have what makes us unique. Okay. So we're all going to be saying the same thing. So what my organizations do is they take this 1-page document. So it's double-sided, but it's just 1 page. And I never, ever make it longer than that. And it has some mandatory elements on it. It has the history of our organization. So what makes us unique? What's the challenge? And we can use this document to add some of this information to grants that we apply for. But every year, I have case statements for my organizations about what our goals are for the year and what are we going to be searching for finances. What do we need that year to really elevate our organization? What is it we're trying to get funded, whether it's through grants, individual donors, whatever. But these are our goals. So what's the challenge? What's the threat to our success? What's the data? So, I mean, what are our rates of unhomed individuals? What's our substance abuse rate? What's our suicide rate? All those really daunting rates that we're really trying to overcome. Who are we and what do we need? So what is it what's our mission? What's our vision? Where are we? Who do we serve? What's our primary programs? And what are the results that we've achieved in the past? So, and what's our future plans? So this sounds like a lot, but we're going to make it a really concise document. What's our call to action? So what are we asking for in this budget? So we're not going to give them our entire organizational budget. We're not going to give them our $24 million budget. We're going to give them what we want to raise for these particular projects. So we're not just going to say, okay, so to do all of this work, it's going to be $60,000. That's not what we're going to say. We're going to say to sponsor one kid for summer camp, it's going to be $5,000, or it's going to be $5 a day to feed X amount of children, or per child. We're going to break it down so that you can take this to a Kiwanis meeting. You can take this to any other local service provider, social service, when your board members are going to these breakfasts and these dinners that they have to go to, they're going to leave it at the table. They might even mention it while they do their introduction. Hey, everybody, I'm going to leave these because these are our needs at our organization this year. They're also going to, maybe when they do a foundation visit, or then when they meet with a funder that they know, or when they go to a board and they introduce themselves from a funder, they might have that in their hand. So they're going to do this call to action. And I'm going to tell you why, because this is really a successful approach. You're always going to have your contact information. And I'm going to show you an example. So I work with several boys and girls organizations. And this is how it looks when it's all done. So they actually were looking for prevention money. So they had prevention programs. Their history was about, what community do they serve, their biggest challenges that they see. Their alliance is uniquely positioned. Again, what's unique about you, right? How we can be part of the solution. We're not making it about how we want you to be part of the solution, but how we as an organization with you, how can we be part of this solution? So when I first gave this to them, they took it to a foundation in New Hampshire and they said, we really want to work. This was a group of all the boys and girls clubs in the entire state wanted to work together, go to this foundation and say, as an alliance of boys and girls clubs, we really want to get this funded. This is our dream to have all our boys and girls clubs around the state to have us all doing these prevention programs. So what happened was they met with the foundation. The foundation said, you know what? We think this would be a great idea. All we had was this one pager. They said, we think you should apply to us, but we also think you should apply to the state. Let us bring in some state people and let us talk to them. So we were like, okay. And they said, would you bring us back a budget? So I created a budget with them. We talked about, okay, what's it going to take at every place? So you see here, it's not a lot of information, but it started the conversation. It was information, though, that I could use in a grant. So they ended up getting awarded not only money from that foundation, but they ended up getting one grant. One Boys and Girls Club was a fiscal agent for 3 Boys and Girls Clubs, and they got a grant. 2 years later, it was embedded in the governor's budget. So, you know, what I was saying about one funder knows another funder, this is how this started and this is how it grew. So this was really successful. Now, the specific Boys and Girls Club where I started working before I started working with the Alliance was the one in Salem. Now in 2018, they needed a new pool. So we said, okay, our focus this year is really going to be on getting this pool. We also have STEM programming we want a new sign, and we want some safety improvements. So again, we did the history, what our challenges were, how we plan to meet them, what was the solution. So we broke down our initiatives in this budget. And we were like, okay, so our pool renovation, when we broke it down per member, was $216 per member. So we really tried to make it so that the budget didn't seem like, wow, we really need $600,000 or, you know, $400,000. It ended up, we needed $600,000 because, as is with any other project, you start with the pool and then you realize you need HVAC and the, you know, on and on and on. But we ended up starting with a $200,000 donation by a foundation that wanted to remain anonymous and said, if you can match us in your community, we'll give you $200,000. So after we put this out, now I thought the CEO of this organization is brilliant because he said, I'm not just going to show this to funders. I'm going to go over a staff meeting in January with my staff and say, look, guys, this is our intent this year. We all need to speak the same language. We all need to do the same thing. When we're talking to anybody, this is our elevator speech, right? So every single year since, I think I've been with him since 2016, we've been creating these annually. And he talks with his staff and says, okay, this year, this is our goals. He also goes over it with the board, which pretty much knows that these are what our goals are because they've been developing the strategic plan. But again, then they have these one pagers to go to all these meetings with, but we're all speaking the same language. So everybody from the janitor to the program director, everyone else is using these tools. So Marco really believes in these because they've been really successful. So we ended up raising in total $675,000 for the pool through community outreach, through several, I mean, we got the 200,000 grant, but then we got another 120 in different foundation grants. And these are just some of what he had to say about it. He loves it to educate his staff and his administration, his board. He felt it recentered themselves and they were staying true to their strategic plan. For the safety improvement, they had raised $18,000 and he did raise money for his evidence-based programs. And he said it was important that the staff was involved in the process, and it allowed them to ride shotgun throughout the entire process. So again, it creates this buy-in, right, from everybody. It also gives you, as the grant professional, a way to organize your thoughts, put it all on one page, make sure everybody's working with you, get everybody involved. And you do have, I mean, albeit, a small portion of what you need to write, but it is written. It did everything he intended it to do. And he, again, we just did a pavilion with him for quite a bit of money, and it was really successful. I think they raised 1.2 million. So again, this is another tool you can use. Do any of you see yourselves trying to do something like that? I think I'd like to open up chat for a little bit, if we could. Have you ever used anything like this, or do you see yourselves ever using anything like this? Okay, Jeremy's saying that his board members do. You have one. That's awesome. Okay, it's difficult since our board spans from across 13 states. Yes, that would be difficult. But can you train maybe boards locally that would help local aspects of your organization? I guess I'd like to expand that a little more, try to help you with that. I mean, boards should really be invested in your organization. Okay, one person is saying that they have a standard case statement for general operating. I've also done them for more specialized, specific capital needs. Great. Yes, I've often done this too, even with this client. We do one annually for everything, but then we also do it for capital campaigns or other such things. I'm glad to see some of you have them already. Anyone want to open up your mic and talk about this?
This is Jeremy Karen. I'll jump in.
Jeremy, hi.
Yep. Both of the boards that I serve on are all volunteer boards. And I could certainly see going through this exercise and having these at the ready could be really helpful when funding opportunities come up, or if we decide to search out for funding opportunities in our day-to-day lives. We're all very busy people with lives outside of the boards we serve on, and I think doing the upfront work to get these put together would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, it's going to fall on you ultimately, but hopefully, is there a strategic plan in place?
For one of the organizations, not for the other.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to be for the Iowa Association for Energy Efficiency, we're going to be updating that strategic plan this year. So that process will be kicking off here pretty soon.
And will you be part of that?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, because we're lost without strategic plans. All my clients know because they've all got them, but it takes me a while to train them, because after we develop a strategic plan, if they send me an opportunity, I'm like, hey, was that in the plan? And they'll be like, no. I'm like, then we're not doing it. It's just that simple. We just really have to stay true to what the vision and the organization was. And I'm glad for you that that's coming up. But it is easier with a strategic plan to create these. It's a matter of prioritizing even off of that, because sometimes we have so many goals. So good for you. But yes, it will be helpful. It's a hot topic to get your board members connected better locally. Yes, it is. It's funny because I have this conversation. Oftentimes when we're writing a grant, it's really, and I don't know, Ellie, you may not feel this way about this, but as a grant professional, I like to be able to say that 100% of my grant has, 100% of my board has contributed financially to the organization. And in my mind, we have 3 W's in the board: the worker, the wealth, and the wisdom. And oftentimes, you may have people who just work a ton and cannot financially contribute for whatever reason. But I always say to them, for those kind of people, I don't care if they contribute $1. I don't care if you have a board meeting and you pass the hat and they put in $1. People need to know, funders need to know that that your board is invested, because why should they be invested if you aren't, if your board isn't invested? And I'm not comfortable really asking for money from a funder if my board of directors isn't invested. Do you require an amount? I know some of foundations have been asking to what level board members are contributing. Does yours? No.
No, the Community Foundation doesn't ask about contributions for our Better Together grants. We don't ask about contributions from the board, but we talk about it in terms, we have a board basics training, and as you were talking, I was like, oh, I'm going to put the link to that here in the chat because we talk about it a lot in that training, and we refer to it as doers, donors, and door openers. And we have a whole little portion of the training where we talk about the expectation that board members should give a meaningful gift and how that might not necessarily be the same for every board member. It's not going to be the same for every board member, but you know, if the board isn't contributing in a way that's meaningful to them, then just like you said, Cindy, how can we encourage others to be giving to the organization? So
Right.
yeah.
Right. It could be that they, you know, are volunteering 2-3 times a week and they know somebody that gave $10,000, $20,000, you know,
Right.
they have those connections or whatever, but that means they're very valuable. They might have those social connections. So you don't want to lose those board members. They're very valuable. But we have a question. We have a hand up from Brian. Am I saying it
yeah.
right? Sorry.
Yep, you're just fine. Well, and I was the one that has the comment about board members. So as Mosaic, our network spans across 13 states, and our board members, most of them come from across that network, but some might be family members that are not in that 13 states where our services are provided. So we do actually have a couple of board members that are Iowa, and right now it's how do we really get them involved? And there was a little bit of a dispute last year because I feel they should be involved and know about things that are happening. And someone else was like, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean they're not involved? Now they are contributors and supporters of Mosaic, which is absolutely wonderful. But part of me is like, so do they go through board training 101 anywhere? So Ellie, I'm like, every time I hear about it through you guys, I'm like, I just want to send this and find a way to helpful nudge to my people to be like, have you all done this before? You should. But yeah, it's for us, the big thing is making sure that not only are they financially contributing, because we don't necessarily say you have to, but if you are able to, yes, we would love that. But also we want to make sure that you're connected with Mosaic and being a supporter through sharing our stories and connecting us with your circle. So that's how I'm trying to really get them involved.
Right.
This year.
I would say when they're recruited, what's the process for recruitment? Is there, do you have established roles and responsibilities for board members?
So that's the fun part is all of the people that are from Iowa, when they were recruited, I came in the same time that they did into my role. So I don't know the process just yet. So I'm learning it right now with a few other people as they're being recruited. So
I think I would ask that question. What is your role?
Resource development manager. So I'm in charge of friend and fundraising.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know at what point you can ask that question, but I would ask that question because
Yep.
all boards, I mean, by law, have to have some sort of structure. And,
Yes.
you know, most boards have some kind of roles and responsibilities. And part of that is how many board meetings they attend, you know, how many events they attend, you know, oversight, how many committees they sit on, if they chair any, you know, there's a whole list of things. And part of that could be not only fundraising, but their role in involvement. It's interesting because there's boards that are just really active boards, hands-on everything. And then there's some boards that are just really like in name only. And I don't think either one is good. I think that it should be some of both. And an organization really needs a lot of support. And so it's really good to have a mix, of people. And also, I like to give out, I have a survey that I give to my clients when they're trying to recruit board members, because just because I'm a grant professional doesn't mean that in my spare time and my time off, I want to be a grant writer for some nonprofit that wants to recruit me. We always should ask, I may have a special interest in a topic that no one even thinks about. And I may want to sit on a nonprofit because that's a something that really interests me, and I have a lot to give to that. We also should ask about, do you want email? Do you want, do you reach by phone? Do you want to work Monday through Friday, or is it Saturday, the weekends? Check people's schedule, all of that. So I have sort of a recruitment paper that I give to people, because you just can't make these assumptions about board members. And when you're recruiting, and there should be a recruitment committee on your board, so that you're constantly recruiting new members. But you probably haven't been there long enough to even know what's going on.
Well, the fun part is I've been with the organization for 8 years, but I haven't been on this side of it to
Oh.
see all of like this side. So I'm like asking all of the questions and those historical things, and they love me when I get to asking all of the questions. They're like, Brianne, I'm like, no, I need to know all of these things.
Good for you. Good for you. Keep pushing. It sounds like Ellie's a great resource. So. All right, having seen no more questions, we'll go to the next section of this training, which is about ethics. So I have been on the GPA Ethics Committee for this is my 6th year, so it's something I know pretty well. The GPA, Grant Professional Association, actually started with a group of people wanting to put more ethics into the profession and have it be a highlight. So the Code of Ethics, which was sent out yesterday and will get sent out again, really is broken down into a couple areas. So we want to practice our profession with the highest sense of integrity, honesty, truth. We want to adhere to all applicable laws and regulations. That's talking about the Office of Management and Budget with federal grants, and we want to continually improve our knowledge and skills, which is what you're doing here today by attending this professional development. We promote positive relationships. Again, we talked about that a lot today, right? With all stakeholders, not just our peers, not just the funders, but those who are consumers of our programs. And we value privacy, choice, interests. Again, that's a hot topic right now with AI and when what we're putting into these algorithms. And we want to ensure the funds are solicited according to program guidelines. So again, when I was at AFP last week, we talked about, what do you do when a funder awards you a grant and you have $2,000 left over? Do you just spend it on a different program, or do you get permission to do that? And obviously you need permission. And you don't do that just nilly-willy. So we want to adhere to compensation, and AFP and both the Grant Professional Association have policies on this, that we do not take a percentage of our fees. Like someone asked you to write a $10,000 grant or any amount of an award, you don't get compensated based on the amount of the grant. You charge, by the hour or by the project. We try to encourage everyone to do pro bono as much as they can. We, again, try to be leaders and role models in our field, mentor as much as we can, and embrace this ethics code and standards of our profession. The ethics code is broken down into professional obligations, like what is it that we need to make sure that we're doing on a daily basis, how we present the information. So making sure that we're not obviously giving out any confidential information, but not lying about anything or presenting false information or using data that's 5 years old because it looks better than something that's a year ago. Soliciting and using funds properly. So making sure again that we're spending down properly, that we're using the funds in the way that they were supposed to be used. When we have an approved budget, we stay within that budget line, obviously. Most funds can be spent, anything that's under 10% can be used a little bit from line to line, but anything beyond that needs to be approved by your funder. And then again, compensation. So these are the 4 major areas with the GPA Code of Ethics. And I would say just bringing one, this is the biggest ethical dilemma that we hear about. No matter, we have 4 times a year, we have what's called a discussion den. And we get on a virtual call and we let anyone ask any question they want. And this question comes up all the time. Like, someone wants to hire me and they want me to take a percentage of the grant. I'm not sure how many of you have had that experience, but this is our response all the time. Members shall not accept or pay a finder's fee, commission, or percentage of compensation based on grants and shall take care to discourage their organizations from making such payments. So we are totally aligned with AFP on this. Now, more recently, we've been asked a lot of AI questions, and GPA has definitely issued statements on that, and you can find them on the GPA website. Basically, we didn't create any new ethics regulations because of AI. We felt that we covered them enough in being truthful, remaining confidential, not sharing confidential information, and making sure that we don't break any laws or regulations. So just really staying informed and understanding what algorithms you're using, where that information is going, and just being wise about the tools you're using, because we just view AI as another tool that we can use and have access to. And there is a statement that the board released, and there's also a statement that the ethics committee released. So those are on the GPA website. And whose role is it to ensure that ethics are considered in our organizations? And we would say everyone. Leadership and the board of directors, senior staff, obviously financial staff that oversee what's being spent on any particular grant, the grant professional themselves, program managers, and frontline staff. So that pretty much sums up everyone. It's not something to take lightly. I'm sure everyone on this call knows that. There have been many situations in my 20-year career that, have really been something where I call it like the gut test. I went to a fundraiser once for a United Way, and my role at the time was a coalition director there to reduce substance use in youth. And all the programs that I was implementing in 6 coalitions in the region were to reduce that. And what happened was the person running the fundraiser didn't realize, but her teenage children who were parking cars were drinking alcohol at the party. And obviously that was a problem. So, there's times when, um, there are unintended, uh, conflicts that arise. Obviously the host did not realize that was happening, but there was fallout because of it. Um, there have been times that I have, left a job because, I was asked to do something that I thought was unethical. And there was a time that I got fired because I refused to do something unethical. So, I would say that ethics is something that I have faced, throughout my career. I have a very, um, strong value system, I guess, because I grew up in family businesses where this was taken very seriously. And, I have found that, ethics, is something that we face almost every day when we write a grant, because we can tell stories that, marginalize even more the communities that we serve. And I hope that we don't. There's, a way to look at our communities and the assets they have. And, there's also ways that we can, um, look at our communities and all the deficits they have. And I hope that we can really talk about more of the assets and then what we can do about the systemic problems. I also think that, as we're managing grants, there's so many times that we can educate people on the right way to manage them, because oftentimes it's people just don't really understand. When I was at the county in New Hampshire, we had a drug court, and we also had, housing, units for the participants in the drug court, and they were about a mile apart. And a legislator came to me one day and said, "Can't we use that drug-free communities?" Or, um, it wasn't drug-free communities money, but it was, drug court money, to buy bicycles so that they can just get back from housing to their case management and to court and everything, which was a great idea. But according to the federal government, anything with wheels on it is considered a vehicle, which I didn't know at the time. But as a grant manager, I at the time said, I really don't think that that would be an allowable expense, but I'll certainly look into it. So at least I was smart enough to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. So I did call the federal government and I asked, and they said, no, that's considered a vehicle, which kind of made me laugh because it's not really a vehicle, but in their mind, anything with wheels is a vehicle. So, we didn't buy the bicycles, but rather than, just go buy them and then not be able to, get reimbursed, was the right decision. We ended up, there was a chief of police on our drug court team. And they've been collecting bicycles that are left behind in the community that are never claimed. So he donated them. So, there's ways to, find things in your community, thank God. But, all I guess I'm saying is there's ethical ways to do things. And it's always good to just say, I don't know, and I'll find out, rather than do that and misappropriate funds. I also had, a circumstance, and I guess I could go on and on forever because like I said, in my 20 years, I've had certainly a lot of circumstances, but we had a pass through once for an organization where the executive director had resigned, and the chair board had decided, to fill in that position until they hired someone, which took a lot longer than anybody thought. And I'm sure many of you have faced this situation. So especially when you're a volunteer board, right? So she filled in for I think like 2.5 months, and she ended up giving us a bill of $10,000 for her time. And she had a 40-hour a week job. And at the time I said, that's not going to be allowable. These are federal funds that come through the state and then down to us. And she said, yeah, it will be. And I checked it out and I said, okay, well, I'm going to check it out. So I called the state and I said, this is what's been presenting to us. And she said, the woman managing our state fund said, yeah, that'd be allowable. And I said, I really don't think so. And she said, yeah, it will. And I said, okay. So I said to our county administrator, this is not allowable. So when we have an audit, we're going to get dinged for this 10 grand. And he said, well, put it in writing and make sure you copy everyone. So I did. And I put it in writing and I just said, this will have to be paid back if at audit time we are found to be in violation. So sure enough, during audit, we were found to be in violation. So my lesson learned there was to certainly put everything in writing and cover your butt, because if your gut is telling you no, and your experience is telling you no, even though someone in authority above you might think otherwise, probably you're right. And they did have to pay the $10,000 back. So it was sad, and I understood her reasoning, but she already had a full-time job, and it's hard for someone to justify getting paid twice in the same workday. So just make sure that you're making good decisions, and because I think that these things come up all the time, especially with the way you spend your grant funds. These are some resources that you can certainly check out on the GPA website. We actually have PowerPoints that are made about risk management that people can share. It's a half-hour long because we thought, while people are having lunch or whatever, because a lot of us are speaking to people within our offices, right, about why they can't spend certain funds a certain way. And they're looking at us like we're crazy. Like, why can't we just do that? We got the money, now let's spend it. So we decided, what we heard from our membership was, we just can't convince our staff that we can't do this, and what's the problem with it? And so we did this video that really is about the risk to the organization and how you don't want to get on these bad lists with the federal government, or having a reputation amongst community foundations that are that you misuse funds. And we also have videos about ethics for both employed grant professionals and consultants. So we also have a frequently asked questions page, which is about every question you might ever hear. So please take advantage of that. We update it quite often. So I'm at a point now where we can start with any questions that folks have. I'm happy to delve into any you might have on AI, because I know it's such a hot topic right now, although I know that you just had a recent training on it. So you may be all AI'd out, but I'm happy to go there if people want. Ellie?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Cindy. That was great. Like, from the resources to the ethics, really great information. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, so I would say anyone who's got questions that they want to pop in the chat or ask Cindy directly, you can unmute. Yeah, we've definitely got some time for that. So I'll just kind of be quiet here for a minute and invite you to share. Crable asked one there, Cindy. Mackenzie Scott has made a lot of waves with her giving based in trust-based philanthropy. Do you think more funders are going to start doing more gifts like this?
That is a really good question. I wish I had a magic ball. I think Mackenzie Scott is pretty unique. She has a lot of money, and the way that she has always given out her money has been different than everyone else, especially since she got divorced. I think that she has really thought long and hard about, and she listens, which is the other thing that really is amazing to me. She really listens about that people need operating money. We really need, and she needs to give money to these smaller organizations. So I would like to think so. I think, you know what, like I said, I've been in this field over 20 years. It's still amazing to me that we're still hearing this thing about how nobody should need operating and nobody should have overhead in these small nonprofits. It's just unbelievable. I don't know how people think we keep the lights on or keep people employed or anything like that. It's amazing to me. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I would hope so, but I just don't know.
Good
I mean,
question, Grable.
yeah, it's a really good question. I just don't know.
Anyone else? Maybe while we're waiting, if you're thinking about questions, I'll just tell you about a couple of trainings that are coming up through the Community Foundation. I shared the link to the Board Basics, which is on May 10th. So put that on your radar. It's always really good conversation. It will be here at the Community Foundation at the C3 Center. So this one will be in person, but we do offer that quarterly. So if you can't come, oh, thanks. If you can't come on the 10th, we'll have it again and potentially virtually as well. So, and I think it's already even up there again. Is that Sarah? Will you scroll down? Yeah, and then we'll have it again on June 26th. We also have a Finance 411 training on May 15th. So this is sort of a repeat of a training that we offered last year that was really well received. So definitely put that on your radar too. That's free, and that's also here at the C3 Center. Great. We get another question from Erica. She says, do you have any specific advice for grant writers who fell into the role rather than being trained?
Welcome to the group. It's so funny because when I went to that AFP thing, the woman who was the lead presenter asked that question, and almost everyone raised their hand, like how many people fell into this field. And I think so many did. You know, it was sort of like, your job is this, but hey, could you write this? And then you suddenly you were good at it, so you started doing it. And I had a lot of great mentors, and that's how I started writing. And then I went through a lot of training. But I would say just take advantage of professional development as much as you can and mentors, because that is how you're really going to learn. And don't be afraid. I mean, just really, I mean, there are a lot of nonprofit and funders who have trainings that are really helpful to an organization. I mean, I'm just looking at your list, Ellie, that you just shared. I mean, I think that's great that you will help boards like that. I think foundations have really come a long way in realizing that you really need the strength of the board, and for that to be really strong in order to have a good nonprofit. And so that's one area. I think strategic planning is another area. That's something that, you know, has been really supported over the years. But, you know, I think, you know, if you have someone that you can have coffee with now and then, that's a grant writer, you know, just sit and chat, you know, meet them once every couple of weeks. Join GPA if you can. I think we have a lot of free trainings at GPA. You know, they don't cost anything. So, I mean, I would take advantage of that. And, you know, you don't always have to go to the conference or anything. I would really just take advantage of your peers and see if you can't get a mentor, because they do have a mentor program. And there might be some people who are more advanced in your own community that would be willing just to meet with you now and then. But, you know, just when you go in a room in a training and there's someone that you think, wow, they really have their act together and they know what they're talking about, just try to connect with them, Erica. But it really is all about relationships. And I wouldn't rely too much on AI. You've really got to develop some of those skills yourself. So,
I would totally echo what Cindy says, and I got the chance to speak last year at the Iowa Grant Professionals Association conference, and it was a really great conference. So I would echo that, Erica. If you have the opportunity to join or participate in anything that they're offering, it's great. And not to keep plugging things through the Community Foundation, but I would also add that we have a new series that we launched last year called Colleague Connect. So it's once a month. It's a chance to network with other people in the nonprofit sector that are sort of wearing that same hat as you. So we've got one opportunity for executive directors. We've got another for managers, and we qualify that as managers of staff or volunteers. And then we've got one for marketing and communications professionals and another for development. So if you feel like your role would fit within any of those areas, you're welcome to join us. It's really just 1 hour a month for coffee and time to connect, because we know the nonprofit space can be somewhat lonely sometimes.
it can, yeah. And the isolation is very real. I mean, even after all these years, I meet virtually with 2 other grant professionals once a month. We talk for an hour. We did Brene Brown's Dare to Lead process all last year, and we decided just to keep up and keep talking.
That's awesome.
Do you have advice or resources for funding that is specifically for seed money to start a nonprofit? I assume you're talking in Iowa. That's hard to find. No, I don't. I would really go to that site that I had walked you all through and try to find an organization that specifies that they would give money to a startup. And I mean, it would be hard to find, but they are out there. I also think you might want to find an individual maybe who believes in the mission of what you're starting to get some seed money that way. Someone that's got a lot of passion for whatever the value is or goal of your organization. Can you tell me a little bit about what the organization's going to do? Women artists. There's a lot of art money out there. Send me your email and I'll connect you with a couple art grant writers. I know 2 that do nothing but arts, so they may have an idea. I will put my email in the chat.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I want to invite anyone who wants to oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah shared our So You Want to Start a Nonprofit video and handouts. So yes, please check that out. But thanks to everybody for joining us. If you want to stick around, we've got a few more minutes. I'm sure Cindy's happy to answer any more questions. Otherwise, I'll just say thanks again. We will share the recording and the PowerPoint and the handouts after today's session. You know how to find us if you have questions, and we'll have Cindy's contact info on there too, so you can reach out to her. But huge thank you, Cindy. This was so great. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Before we get off, I wanted to say that, does everyone know about that Tellegen Community Initiative grants?
Are you talking here in Des Moines? Like
Yeah.
Tellegen?
Okay, because I saw an announcement for them yesterday. It's a weird thing. It came through one of the things I'm on, but they have for programs and nonprofit org to address social determinants that impact health.
Mhm.
Due July 2nd.
Yeah, if you have a link to it, you could definitely throw it in the chat, or we
I
could
will.
share that in a follow-up email too.
Meant to mention that. Let me
Yeah, that's
see.
great. Telligent is definitely one of our funder partners here in the community.
It's so weird that it actually showed up. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And if you have any
you.
other questions, feel free to email me. I'll
We
always
appreciate
answer.
that.
All right, Ellie and Sarah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy the day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.